We are live. Welcome to the show today. I have got a great guest to share with you her expertise in something that a lot of times people shudder from. And Denise Grove is here, and she's going to share with us about how to manage your books the executive style way, a CFO, Chief Financial Officer support. So go ahead and jump in and tell us how you started this business, Denise.
Well, number one, Mitch, thank you for having me on the show.
My pleasure.
I saw a need. I started my career, of course, with KPMG, the international accounting firm, and worked my way from there into corporate opportunities with Fortune 500s. What I realized as I worked with different big companies was that there were small to medium sized business owners, a lot of times family owned and run, that could use the expertise of someone with my background.
Oh,
So the
yeah.
second time in 5 years that my Fortune 500 loved job was transferred out of Metro Atlanta, where, as you can tell, I am a Georgia native,
I can hear it.
I started working with a business coach, which I'm big on getting help when you want to get started on something new, and devised CFO support, which helped small business owners, medium business owners with their financial questions when they didn't have someone on their staff that could help them.
Well, that's great. And when I had my advertising business, I needed someone like you because the last thing I wanted to do was, I'm an MBA, so I certainly am schooled in numbers. I just don't like doing it. You know, you got to stick to your pudding, right? Is that correct?
That is so correct. And a lot of people do start businesses and they focus on things like marketing, client service development, the product that they're going to be selling, and put keeping up with their money on the back burner. And one of the number one reasons businesses fail in the first 5 years is lack of cash flow. And that's where a really good finance person, bookkeeper, or an accountant can make the difference in your business success.
Totally agree with you. But let's jump in. So, how would your friends describe you?
Well, I actually polled my friends to help answer that question, and they came out with that I was warm, approachable, loyal, and responsible. The one I loved the best was that I was cool and calm in all crisis situations, which that one I didn't even realize until I asked them, and that I love solving problems.
Well, and that's great. And what would you say is your greatest accomplishment?
Well, I am fortunate to have several. On a personal note, I've got to say that I'm blessed with a wide group of friends and family that when they think of how I've impacted their lives, I think they would smile warmly. On a career basis, I'm proud to say that I have been successfully in business within the services I've been working in for 22 years now, which is quite a milestone for a sole proprietor.
Oh, big time, big time. And who manages your books? Just kidding. Okay. Well,
Uh, well, to be honest, Mitch, I have tried to outsource my bookkeeping. And it is really, really difficult to be the bookkeeper for someone with my background.
I would imagine. I would imagine that poor individual, they're probably getting scrutinized beyond what they had ever expected. So by a super professional. So that's great. So what wish you had known when you started out?
But I will say I'm a early adopter of automations. And
Okay.
so, and that is also one thing that I help my clients with. But I have automated and used a lot of the tools, which means that basically I'm able to keep up with my accounting and bookkeeping on a phone app.
Oh, okay. Well, then that's good. And what are you curious about right now?
Well, I am in the process of writing my first book. And it is a book to help others remove their fear and intimidation on financial questions by using plain English in my explanations. I am in the process of learning as a first time author how to get a book published.
Okay. Well, I could certainly have a long conversation with you about that because I have gone that route, and it was interesting. So, what's something you have failed at? Because you're probably very achievement oriented. I would just gather by your background, and I've read, and I mean, I certainly research all my guests, and that way I can speak confidently. But somewhere where you would have compartmentalized that as a failure.
Well, my very, very first failure was snow skiing.
Well, tell me more. That's okay.
Number one, I'm not a cold weather person.
Okay.
But everyone was making these big trips out, especially out west to Colorado to go snow skiing. And of course, being a lifetime learner, I was like, well, I'll try that. I did not do well at that. I spent most of the trip with my skis stuck in snow where I fell. And my conclusion was that really good water skiers are not shoe in as snow skiers.
Okay.
But I do think that you should try things and you will make mistakes, but failing fast is a great way to use your lifetime.
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, and there's a saying I've used for a while: is failure way to success. Get it over.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you could have coffee with any historical figure, I'm a big history buff. So, and who would you choose to have coffee with? Now, the caveat is they must be passed on in the afterlife, not currently living.
Okay. Not a problem. The first person that pops to mind is Eleanor Roosevelt.
Oh, okay. Why?
I read her book years and years ago on the value of mentoring and just became an avid follower of all of the different activities and issues that she took on her plate, even as the First Lady of the United States. And I was most impressed by the fact that she didn't stay within, at that point, what was considered gender norms, for lack of a better description. As she saw problems and she went out and helped solve them. And that is one of the reasons I just love to sit down and have a cup of coffee.
Okay. Yeah, I read Teddy Roosevelt's biography. It was quite interesting. So, all right, now let's move to the more current. Who's been your most important professional mentor?
Well, I do have to again admit that I've been fortunate to have many, many, many great mentors in my career and in my life. One in particular is a accounting professor that I had at Auburn University. When I was trying to decide which of the big accounting firms I would start my career with, I had some great solid offers from all of them presented with a good career path. And he gave me advice, which I continue to use to this day, was that think about it, stop thinking about it, go to sleep, and the first thing you think when you wake up in the morning, that's the one you do.
Let me repeat that because that's quite profound. I'm pausing here. I want you to go back to that if you would. So what I want to see this is I think of always in pictures and infographics. So start with the first box. What would that be?
The very first box is it visually would be a person at a table with multiple cards laid out upon the table face up, all of them of equal value, but they can only pick one.
Okay. And what makes the decision though of that one? If you're saying no to the good and yes to the great, how do you determine which one is the great one?
And that is the secret to what I believe Wayne was sharing with me was that I've got all 4 or 5 great choices. I cannot make a bad choice. So now, how do you pick one of those 4 or 5? And you cognizantly weigh in the pros and cons. Then you just stop thinking about it and go to sleep. And the answer is on the top of your mind when you wake up. Somehow your subconscious processes it so you know to pick card number B.
Wow, I love that. I love that. And that I'm going to use that and report back to you how that works, because that is great. Because oftentimes, I mean, in this work that I do or for clients, I mean, I'm going to share that. I think it's a great strategy. Just had to spend a little time there.
Good.
Okay. Well, if you could go back to the 18-year-old Denise, freshman at Auburn University, what advice would you give her?
I would definitely suggest that I pause and spend some time in the lovely Davis Arboretum on Auburn University's campus pondering what my life goal would be.
Okay.
I started at age 18 doing excellent advice from family about what's the correct way to go about adulting.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't necessarily stop and think, how would I want to do this and what would be my life goal?
Oh, interesting. Interesting. Okay. And I would imagine you still have goals. Where do you want to take CFO support?
Well, my goal is at the end of my life that I have shared with other people this 40 plus years of experience that I've gathered, working not only in the accounting and finance world, but working with business startups, as well as one of my personal passions is taking the fear out of money, especially for women. As women, I think that audience many times is either intimidated, or better yet, you're talking about how it's easy to let someone else help you with the books. It's if you have someone else that's willing to take on the lead on making the money choices for you, it's really easy to say thank you, and basically let go of that responsibility. I feel like you need to own your money and be intentional about your money, because it will then grow and further serve you and remove the stress of financial instability.
Good. Well, this is something that I would also be eager to learn about your experience, because I think uh, I would almost accuse you of being a sage in some cases. And I say that in a fond way. Accuse you of being a sage is, how do you overcome a challenge life throws at you?
When challenges are thrown my way, and I admit my 18-year-old self did not approach them this way, I now I pause, I assess, and then I think, why is the challenge being thrown in front of me? And with that, I then start looking and saying, is that really where I wanted to go? If it is, then I work other plans around that challenge to achieve my goal.
Okay. Well, I'm going to put your feet to the fire here, because you divulged early that you're writing a book. You're in the throes of it. You haven't completed it yet. And here's what happens with first time authors: they think of another book. So if you had to write a second book tomorrow, what would you write about?
Well, I actually have already thought that one through. It's because I uh, want to serve with financial knowledge,
Sure.
which is a very broad topic to begin with. Because my coaching is primarily with small business owners, women owned business, and entrepreneurs, the first book is going to be targeted closer to, are you running a business? And what questions do you have there? And what's that gray line between your business money and your personal money? Because as a small self owned business, it's sometimes really hard to tell where the business stops and the personal money starts.
Sure.
So the next series of book in the books would be a book that was more personal targeted. And then, of course, my third idea was I could always also do what do you need to be doing by decade. So, like when you're right out of college, in your 20s, in your 30s. So, I mean, I've already written a whole series of books and I haven't even published the first one.
Okay. Well, that's good though. That's the overachiever in you. And yeah, that would be there. Now, here's a question I like to ask. What's one question you wish I'd asked? And this gives you your opportunity to be asked something that wasn't already provided.
The question I would love to have had you ask is how can people find me and
Well, I
follow
want
me, as well as would people like to sign up for my new newsletter?
okay. Well, that is, yeah. Well, I mean, here we are is how can I support you? We would put you right here at CFO-support.com. And
That's
go ahead,
that's
tell us
correct.
what's in your newsletter.
Well, what I have been wanting to do is share the blog post. The blog post have a lot of information, tips not only about money and finances, but also about automations, systems, and because they're static, if you will, on my website, a lot of people don't see these blog posts. So, my new gift to the world is I want you to join my e newsletter, which I'll share the link to the blog post as well as a little information about what the topic is. And hopefully, you'll click through and take advantage of my complimentary resources.
Okay, great. So yeah, please share us. What is that link?
So, well, it's actually on the CFO-support.com website. You'll see it right in the middle of the homepage.
Okay, well then they will know where to go. And how would you say your experiences panned out on this show?
I have loved it. I've loved it. This bit once I got my earbuds working, it was great.
Technology challenge, but we sorted it.
I
Well,
know, but you saw, as my friend says, I'm calm, cool, and collected in a crisis.
ooh,
I
ooh,
remained very calm.
totally. You were not unnerved. Some people get flustered, but you were, yeah, no crisis. It was a snafu. I would call it a snafu, and we addressed it, and here we are. And what's your final word for the listeners?
Well, I do think that people remember how you make them feel,
Hmm.
not necessarily what you say. I go about my daily business trying to make sure that the person with whom I'm interacting remembers that I made them feel good and respected. And my overall life motto is do good, which happens to be my initials, DG. And I hope that as I go out in the world and meet with other people, that I leave them better than the way I found them.
Well, I'm going to jump in and respond to that. I would say you definitely gave me a lift today. Thank you for that.
Good.
Yeah, no,
Good.
you achieved your objective. Second is I took away a huge, I would say the huge gem. Each guest gives me some gems. Some are greater than others, but yours helps because as an entrepreneur myself, I have 1,000 ideas get thrown at me and probably daily an MLM of the week or MLMs come at me all
Right.
the time. And, I'm kind of rolling my eyes. But with that, I will say there are some ideas that are great, and so how to sort the good from the great or separate the good from the great. You gave me that answer. You gave me that answer today. Go to sleep on it, and then it will come with your subconscious, or when you become conscious in the morning, your subconscious works on it overnight. Isn't that what you said? Essentially,
Exactly.
that was a great tip, which I can
Good.
implement and share the result with you. Well, you've been a fantastic guest, and you have done good, Denise Grove. So I appreciate your time today, and I know the listeners have benefited. And I look forward to having you on the show again in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mitch. It was great to be here.